I'm Jay Struberg, live in Atlanta, and this is your evening debrief. Our top story tonight is right here in Georgia. A showdown in the South on Tuesday as Georgia voters head to the polls in a runoff election with the final seat in the U.S. Senate at stake. Democratic incumbent Raphael Warnock facing Republican challenger Herschel Walker. Although Democrats have already secured control of the Senate, this final seat is still important for a few reasons. First off, in a 50-50 Senate's committees must share power, but a win for Warnock would put Democrats in charge of all committees, giving them more power to investigate whatever they want. If Republicans win, they'll get a say on what investigations or hearings will happen. A Republican win would also make it easier to block legislation from the Democrats and initiatives and judicial nominees by President Biden. And it's evident Georgia voters realize what's at stake. So far, nearly 1.9 million votes have been cast. The state broke early voting records 3 times this past week, with the highest single-day turnout on Friday, when more than 353,000 votes were cast. Georgia has already broken the record for absentee votes in a midterm runoff, with more ballots still out. But with those shattered records came long lines at polling places. Some precincts reporting wait times upwards of 2 hours. A much different picture from early voting during midterms last month, when the average wait time was about 2 minutes. But some voters said the lines didn't deter them.
Made it 2 hours. It was worth the wait.
What brought me out today is about change and the direction in which our country is heading.
I got here at 7:15, and it took me about 40 minutes to vote. My wife said she's going to sleep in and vote later, and it's going to take her over 2 hours.
This is the first runoff since Georgia's new voting law took effect, which in part shortened the runoff period. It now requires only 5 days of in-person early voting in the week before Election Day. Georgia's Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger has been at the helm of the state's elections since 2019. Since then, he's overseen several changes to the election process and infrastructure. But as you may recall, in 2020, he came into the national spotlight after the presidential election when former President Donald Trump and his allies spread false claims about widespread voter fraud in Georgia. Trump even calling the secretary and asking him to, quote, find votes in a now infamous phone call. Raffensperger and his team, all Republicans, stood up against Trump, conducted a full audit, and disproved the claims. This year, he won re-election by the largest margin of victory in any of Georgia's midterm races. Secretary Brad Raffensperger joins us now to talk more about the Senate runoff and election integrity. Mr. Secretary, thank you so much for your time this evening. I imagine it is a very busy couple of days for you. So let's jump right in.
It will be starting Tuesday morning, 7 a.m. for sure.
Let's jump right in there. The midterm election in November and this runoff are the first truly big tests of Georgia's new voter law that was signed by Governor Kemp in 2021. As we just mentioned, we saw record single-day turnout for early voting in the midterms. Then again this past week, shattering records on Monday, Tuesday, and then again on Friday. The big difference in the runoff, though, much longer lines. So is this partly because of the shortened runoff period under the new law? And do you foresee these wait times being an issue on Election Day?
Well, it's a combination of issues. But, for example, in Fulton County, they began the early voting period with 13 less precincts than they had for early voting during the fall election, things like that. And when it's compressed into 6 days or 7 days, if you had Saturday and Sunday voting, then that just, obviously could exacerbate the issue. But going back to November and the early voting of 17 days we had, people generally, by and large, moved through there with not too many lines. But what we're really saying is that more Georgians prefer to vote early as opposed to on Election Day or with the no excuse absentee voting. So going forward, we'll look at and work with the General Assembly and the counties on what we need to maybe perhaps look at for making sure we have enough precincts open for early voting.
That being said, I've seen some examples of people waiting, 1-2 hours to vote, which is a very long time. So what is your message to people who left polling places without voting altogether because of these long lines? And what's your response to those who say this could be a form of voter suppression?
Well, state law requires lines to be shorter than 1 hour on election day. So the big test will be this coming Tuesday, just like it was when we had Tuesday in November. And Tuesday of November, the average wait time at about 1 o'clock when I screenshot it was 3 minutes. It actually got down to 2 minutes. Longest wait time we had anywhere statewide was about 14 minutes. All the precincts will be open for early voting on election day for this coming Tuesday. And so we're prepared for big numbers. And numbers should be no more than what we saw back in November. So I think the counties will be able to handle it again since all the precincts will be open.
So in the past two general elections, 2018 and 2020, the final results for the U.S. Senate have hinged on runoffs in Georgia. Just two states, Georgia and Louisiana. Those are the only two that require a runoff if no candidate gets 50% of the vote in the general election. I would imagine some voters feeling some apathy, being a little fatigued with the whole going back to the polls once again a month later. So do you think Georgia should rethink these runoffs, considering the amount of time, money, and resources it takes to conduct them?
Well, I'm sure that the General Assembly would like to look at, different options. I know that for the overseas UOCAVA, the military ballots primarily, that was used. We used instant runoff for that, a ranked choice voting system, and that worked well. And then other people have talked about, years gone past, that it was a plurality of over 45%, things like that. I think, the General Assembly want to look at that thoughtfully and see what is the best way going forward. Does the period need to be extended? Do we need to make sure that there's actually more precincts that are open for early voting to make sure we can handle, the flush of voters? The challenge that you have is you really prepare for as best you can, but you never really know who's going to show up. It's not like a tee-off time or open table where people reserve their time. And so that sometimes leaves the county in a bit of a jam because they don't know who's going to show up for early voting. But come Tuesday, the counties are to be prepared to keep lines shorter than 1 hour. They know who's voted early, so they know what's the potential. And in November, like I said, the longest wait time was 14 or 16 minutes. Average wait time was as low as 2 minutes. And that's the mark that we're going to hold them to, keep those lines shorter than 1 hour this coming Tuesday.
You had mentioned ranked choice voting. That is a system that is used in Alaska. They don't have runoffs. There is a delay upon getting the results from the election, but you won't have the situation where you'd have voters being just tired of the process. Is that something that you would endorse if it made its way through the Georgia legislature?
Well, we're going to take a deep dive in that. We really want to have, the legislators, look at all the different options, and there'll be lots of discussions and, what type of, peer-reviewed studies are out there. And so we'll look at all options. We just want to make sure that we keep honest, safe, and accurate election process. And some of the mechanics of how that occurs, that is really up to the General Assembly. But at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we can identify who that winner is, and there'd be no question about who that person is.
Of course, in 2020, Georgia became ground zero for election denialism. We saw it this time around as well. 2 years later, Donald Trump, many Republican candidates and their supporters, they're still perpetuating those falsehoods. You, however, have pushed back. What is your message to those election deniers who continue to question the integrity of elections?
Well, I think we've shown conclusively that in Georgia, we have honest and fair elections. We have, with our absentee ballot process, we have photo ID, just like we have photo ID for if you show up early or on election day. So you know who that voter is. It's enhanced security, and that elevates voter confidence. We have now 17 days early voting during the normal general election period. We've had 5 to 7 days, for the runoff period. But people know that their vote will be accurately counted. And then we audit. And we audited the race that we had for my race, actually. We wanted a statewide race. We had to audit that by state law. And we are going to be asking the counties to audit the senatorial race just so we can have that information to get back to voters. Here's what the machine said. Here's what the vote totals are. And so we have, it all lining up so that we had an accurate race. At the end of the day, I understand that, it's going to be very close. And that's why it's very important that people know we have accurate and fair elections in Georgia.
I want to talk about your book, Integrity Counts. You detailed your personal background, your time in office leading up to 2020, and then, of course, that phone call with President Trump that we just talked about. But you ended your book with your hopes for the future and your thoughts on what needs to happen to restore trust in the election process. And your solution points to a deeper moral problem, not only in American politics, but in American society. Can you talk more about what you had to say?
Well, I really said at the end of the day, what we should be looking for, and the people that are running for office, what they should exhibit is really character, integrity, the ability to have civil discourse, to talk to people on both sides of the aisle, and to quote Ronald Reagan, to speak kindly. I think that's really what people are looking for. They want us to, to really get the job done, to be results-oriented, results-focused. And so that's the most important thing, is put the people first, truly put the people first, and figure out what you can get done that really benefits all Americans.
Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, I know this is a busy time for you, and we really do appreciate you making some time for us this evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you.